You are watching our live coverage of the procession for Sergeant Chris Brewster, a Houston police sergeant who was shot and killed in the line of duty on Saturday in Houston's East End. They're traveling along the Gulf Freeway right now, headed to Grace Church, Houston. A warning that you may run into several rolling closures if you are trying to commute along the Gulf Freeway right now as they try to make their way up to the 14,500 block of the Gulf Freeway. Sergeant Brewster's body there in that hearse traveling from Forest Park Lawndale Funeral Home, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family, his parents, his 3 older sisters, his wife Bethany. You can see some of them in that photo from his promotion ceremony just this past February when he was made a sergeant. He was a 9-year veteran of the Houston Police Department, raised in the Sagemont area. Friends who went to high school with him remember him as very funny, witty, sarcastic. He played the sousaphone in the Dobie High School band, and one of the things he is also really remembered for is his faith. And that is something that everyone we've spoken to about Sergeant Brewster has brought up, his faith. Just this morning, I overheard an interview with one of his old friends, a coworker, who says they spent about 2 hours trying to rescue a kitten, and he says that's when he knew that Chris Brewster was a good guy, that he was willing to invest his time and spend his time helping this defenseless creature. Sergeant Brewster was killed on Saturday in the East End, shot and killed by a domestic violence suspect. We're not going to waste time talking about him today because today is about Brewster, but if you want to learn more about that man, that suspect, you can go to khou.com and read up. This procession is headed to Grace Church, Houston. That is where Sergeant Brewster's funeral service will get underway at 10 a.m. The public is invited to that. I want to encourage you, if you can, to go. A huge crowd is expected there, which is why the venue is so large. But we'll also be streaming that on khou.com once it's time. This has been a huge loss for the Houston community, and then just days later, another local law enforcement officer, Kayla Sullivan, killed in the line of duty. She was a sergeant with Nassau Bay. It's been one hit after another for the brothers and sisters in blue who serve our community. Closer look there at the hearse from Air 11, kind of creeping along. Again, on its way to Grace Church, Houston. I'm going to leave you with this for a sec. What a powerful moment as we get ready to watch the procession for HPD Sgt. Chris Brewster pass by here. Houston fire crews out in force to pay their respects to a fallen hero. Just an incredibly touching moment. You think about the impact this has on just the normal person, hearing about, someone who puts on their armor and their badge every day to go out and protect us, that they're putting their lives on the line. Imagine being a police officer, being a firefighter, being a first responder of any kind, knowing that person, or just being part of that blue family. I said earlier that our thoughts and prayers go out to Sergeant Brewster's family, but they certainly go out to his blue family as well, his brothers and sisters in blue. This procession is traveling up the Gulf Freeway, headed to Grace Church, Houston, for Sergeant Brewster's funeral service, which begins at 10 a.m. There are some rolling closures. We've been showing you the traffic that you can see on Air 11 as the freeway shut down here and there. The procession just passed that incredible display of respect and honor from Houston firefighters. Can only imagine the emotion of that moment. If you're just joining us, this procession is for Sergeant Chris Brewster, headed to Grace Church, Houston, for his funeral service at 10 a.m. Sergeant Brewster was killed on Saturday, was gunned down in Houston's East End. He's survived by his parents, his 3 sisters, and his wife, Bethany, of 5 years. He was just 32 years old, and he'd been serving with Houston Police for 9 years, just promoted to sergeant in February. His friends will remember him for his sense of humor, his wit, the jokes, the pranks, and they say most of all, his faith is something that sticks with them. In band, he played the sousaphone in high school band, but he also played guitar for youth group growing up. And it's just a huge loss for the police department, for the Houston community, as we gather soon to say goodbye to a man who gave his life for his community. We have talked to so many friends and family of his. You can read all those interviews on khou.com, friends he had in high school, friends he had as an adult, coworkers. And they'll be there today to honor him. A lot of you are commenting on our live feed, sending thoughts and prayers to the family as well. Branda Case is sending prayers to his family. Jimmy calls this so sad. Annette, use the hashtag We All Wear Blue. Dee says, very sad, rest in peace. God be with all your loved ones. We lost a hero. Tammy Joe's praying for the family's peace and comfort during this horrible time. Natea says, thank you for your service. Narita, thank you for your comment. It says, a life of service is a life well lived. So very sorry for his family, friends, and our entire community. May Chris rest in peace. Leah says Chris was an amazing man and officer. He loved what he did, and he loved helping others. He is a hero and will be greatly missed. Tina sends prayers for this fallen sergeant's family, the honor that is given here on earth. She says, I can't help but see the honor and welcoming in heaven that he is receiving. Bless his family. If you are just tuning in to this live stream here, we are taking a live look from Air 11 at the procession for Sergeant Chris Brewster. He's the 9-year HPD veteran who was gunned down on Saturday, who gave his life in the line of duty. His funeral later this morning in just a few hours. So the procession is traveling from Forest Park Lawndale Funeral Home to Grace Church Houston, where a huge crowd is expected to pay their respects and honor a man who is remembered as witty, funny, kind, and strong in his faith. His wife of 5 years, Bethany, will be there. He's survived by his parents, 3 sisters. You see that photo off to the left there? That's Bethany pinning his sergeant's badge on him during a promotion ceremony in February. He had just been promoted. Very proud to have been promoted. And he was actually working on he'd completed a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership from Texas A&M Commerce. But he grew up in the Sagemont area of South Houston. Local guy, graduated from the academy in November 2010. He'd worked in the Southeast Patrol, Gang Division, Major Offenders Division. And when he got promoted to sergeant in February of this year, he was assigned to East Side Patrol. And he was in the process of completing his master's degree. The friends and family we talked to described someone who just had an amazing sense of humor and loved what he did. Loved his family. His wife of 5 years, Bethany. They had a dog, Brienne. So often we see police officers, and they almost look like superheroes in their uniforms, the badge, the ballistic vest, their weapons. And in some moments, it's hard to see them as human, but they are people who love them, waiting for them at home, praying every day they go out on shift that they come home safely. We just send our thoughts and prayers to Bethany, to Chris's parents, his sisters, his fellow officers, the rest of his brothers and sisters in blue, as we watch this procession move along the Gulf Freeway, headed up to Grace Church, Houston. Carolyn writes, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Margaret commented, "R.I.P. Sergeant Brewster, prayers for your family." Shazia says, "Tears my soul apart to see such a young person escorted to a funeral service. May Allah give patience to his beautiful family. You are our hero." Just 32 years old. And he'd been serving our community as a Houston police officer for 9 of those years. As sergeant for less than a year. Got promoted in February. Oh, Damien says, this is my buddy's cousin. He's very sad. I can only imagine. Martha says, prayers to his family and his family in blue. Thank you for your service. Tina's watching from London. She says, so sad. Condolences to his family. May he rest in peace. I think that's so telling of the impact that he had, that the story of his death has gotten the attention, not just here in the Houston area, or even within the country, but as far away as the UK. People want to pay their respects to Sergeant Brewster for his life of service and for his ultimate sacrifice. And his moments of bravery. Chief Acevedo has said, even after he'd been shot fatally, he was able to make the call to his fellow officers so that they could surround the area and catch the man who shot him. Keep the community safe. I was in the East End on Saturday evening with a girlfriend. We were at Tamale Fest. It was right there on the Esplanade. And around 6, we saw several police cars racing by with their lights flashing. And the girlfriend is Melissa Correa, one of our reporters. She said, I wonder what's going on. And at that time, we just didn't know. And we found out hours later about what had happened to Sergeant Brewster, that the suspect accused of his death had been caught, and Chief Acevedo really credited Sergeant Brewster with making that happen because he made that call. Susan calls this heartbreaking. She says prayers surround his family and friends as they walk through this season. She says she is thankful for his service. And so many of you are commenting, calling him a hero, a brother in blue. Oh, Damien writes, he has an officer that lives across the street, and his whole family goes out to see him off every shift. These families live the worry each and every day, knowing that might be the last time they see him when they go into the office. My heart hurts each time I see them, not knowing what they go through. Because a life wearing the badge is a commitment by the officer, to be sure, but also by the officer's family. Because every day they have to support them walking out the door, knowing that they're walking into one of the most dangerous jobs out there, knowing that they might not come home that day. Can't imagine how hard that is. And the joy you must feel when your officer, he or she, walks through the door after a shift. And the heartbreak when he or she doesn't. And twice this week in the Houston area, a family has gotten that call. Sergeant Brewster's family on Saturday, and then Tuesday night, Sergeant Kayla Sullivan from Nassau Bay. That suspect remains on the run. Sean says, "Godspeed, brother. We'll take it from here. Go walk a beat on heaven's streets. You've done your time." Oh, Selena just saw him pass by. She says, "So sad. Pray daily for the men and women who put their lives on the line for ours." Julie writes, "This truly breaks my heart. Such a young man, truly a hero. Prayers for both of his families, including his wife and his friends. May he rest in peace. God bless." This procession is taking the body of Sergeant Chris Brewster from Forest Park Lawndale Funeral Home to Grace Church, Houston. That's in the 14,500 block of the Gulf Freeway, which is why we've been traveling along it for so long. Also why, if you're driving along that area, maybe you ran into some rolling closures. And it appears we're approaching the church, Grace Church, Houston, where that service will begin at 10 a.m., turning into the parking lot now. Sergeant Brewster has just made his last trip from the funeral home to the church where he will be remembered and honored, his life celebrated in just a few short hours. Final salute there from officers who've gathered for his arrival. A hero's welcome as his brothers and sisters in blue prepare to say goodbye. We're watching now as the casket of Sergeant Chris Brewster is removed from the hearse. I apologize. I saw those officers go into their final salute, and that very powerful. This is going to be our last glimpse of Sergeant Brewster for a bit until that funeral starts at 10 a.m. You can stream that here on KHOU. The public is also invited to the service at Grace Church, Houston. final farewell to a hero. Gone far too soon. At just age 32, a 9-year veteran of the Houston Police Department, just promoted sergeant in February, who gave his life in service on Saturday. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. We appreciate you tuning in to watch that procession, to honor Sergeant Brewster, to pay your respects. A reminder, we will live stream the funeral service that begins at 10 a.m. We'll probably jump on here a little bit before that because we have put together a few stories about Sergeant Brewster's life that we'd like to share with you before the service gets going. But you can continue to leave your thoughts, your prayers, your messages to Sergeant Brewster, to his wife Bethany, to his parents, his sisters, to his Blue family. Sergeant Brewster, we thank you for your service.
As an officer, Christopher was assigned to Major Offenders Division. As a sergeant, he will complete his field training at Southeast Division. He is accompanied on stage by his wife Bethany, along with his parents Cynthia and Louis Brewster. His wife Bethany will pin on her husband's badge.
Which one? My son was in